When we talk about relationships between older men and younger women, one of the most common pitfalls I see, and perhaps the most damaging, is the tendency to overcompensate. It's a subtle trap, and it often begins with good intentions. You meet someone younger, someone vibrant and full of life, and there's an unconscious voice inside you whispering that you need to do more, to prove your worth, to somehow bridge the gap between her youth and your experience. And so many men step into a performance mode. They start buying lavish gifts, showering her with compliments, or bending over backwards to meet every perceived need. On the surface, it can look like generosity or attentiveness, but beneath it lies a quiet insecurity, the fear that without constant effort, she might lose interest or drift away. This fear drives behavior that doesn't build attraction, it actually erodes it. Because what you are really communicating, even if you don't say it out loud, is, I don't believe I am enough as I am. You see, authentic attraction is never born from desperation or performance. Younger women are often drawn to older men, not because of their ability to entertain or spend money, but because of the stability, groundedness, and quiet confidence that comes with life experience. When you overcompensate, you betray those very qualities. Instead of embodying the calm strength that makes you desirable, you start behaving like a man who is seeking validation, constantly looking over his shoulder, wondering if he measures up. This dynamic has a psychological effect. When someone constantly tries to prove themselves, the other person feels the weight of that effort. It creates imbalance. She begins to feel that she holds all the power, and subconsciously, this can lead to a loss of respect. Respect is the foundation of attraction. Without it, desire fades quickly. And once respect is gone, no amount of gifts, compliments, or sacrifices can bring it back. There's also a philosophical element here. When you overcompensate, you are rejecting the natural truth of who you are. You are essentially saying, my authentic self is not valuable enough to be loved. This mindset doesn't just harm the relationship, it harms you. It chips away at your own sense of dignity and self-worth. Relationships are mirrors. If you show up inauthentically, the reflection you receive back will always feel hollow. Imagine a man who has built a life he is proud of. He's confident not because he's perfect, but because he's rooted in who he is. When he enters a relationship with a younger woman, he doesn't feel the need to constantly display his achievements or prove his relevance. His energy says, this is who I am, and you are welcome to join me in this life I've created. That energy is magnetic. It draws people in because it radiates stability and self-assuredness. It creates a space where the younger woman can relax, knowing she's with someone who doesn't need her to fill a void inside him. Contrast this with a man who is always performing. He texts constantly, trying to keep her entertained. He spends extravagantly, hoping to buy affection. He says yes to everything, even when it crosses his own boundaries, because he's terrified of losing her. In this scenario, he becomes exhausted, and she begins to feel suffocated. The relationship turns into a dance of anxiety, rather than a space of growth and connection. So, what does it look like to step out of this pattern? It begins with a deep internal shift. You must first confront the fear that drives overcompensation. Often it stems from internalized beliefs about aging. The cultural narrative that youth is inherently more valuable, that as you grow older, you must fight to stay relevant or attractive. But the truth is, age brings gifts that youth cannot offer: perspective, emotional depth, resilience. These are not deficits to be hidden or compensated for. They are strengths to be embraced. When you embrace those strengths, you naturally show up differently. Instead of chasing her attention, you invite her into your world. Instead of overgiving, you create balance by allowing her to contribute as well. Relationships thrive when both people feel they are adding value, when there is reciprocity. By overcompensating, you actually rob her of the opportunity to invest in the relationship herself. This creates dependency rather than partnership. On a practical level, this might mean slowing down. Allow moments of silence in conversations. Resist the urge to always impress or entertain. Pay attention to how often you are saying yes out of fear versus genuine desire. Start setting boundaries, not as walls to keep her out, but as a way to honor yourself and create a container of respect. Boundaries signal that you know your worth, that you are not afraid to walk away if the relationship no longer aligns with your values. It's also essential to cultivate a rich life outside of the relationship. Overcompensation often happens when a man makes the relationship his entire source of fulfillment. If your world revolves solely around her, you will inevitably feel the need to cling tightly. But if you have passions, friendships, and a sense of purpose beyond her, you bring a fuller, more grounded presence to the relationship. You become a man who is already whole, inviting her to join you in a shared journey rather than asking her to complete you. The irony is that when you stop trying to prove your worth, you actually become far more attractive. Confidence is not loud or flashy, it's quiet, steady, and unmistakable. A younger woman doesn't need you to be everything. She needs you to be yourself, fully, unapologetically, without performance. When you embody that, you give her permission to show up authentically as well. This creates a relationship built on mutual respect and genuine desire rather than fear and control. Remember, love is not a transaction. It is not something you can buy, earn, or negotiate. It flows naturally when two people meet each other with open hearts and grounded selves. When you overcompensate, you interrupt that natural flow. You replace connection with performance, and in doing so, you lose the very thing you were seeking to create. So, let this be a call to return to yourself. Stop chasing approval and start embodying the quiet strength that comes from knowing who you are. Trust that who you are is enough. Not because of what you can provide or how much effort you expend, but simply because authenticity is the most compelling quality a person can possess. In the end, the goal is not to win her over, but to build a relationship where both of you feel free, respected, and truly seen. And that begins the moment you stop performing and start being. Because the most attractive thing you can ever offer a younger woman is not your wallet, your charm, or even your experience. It's your unwavering belief that you are already enough. One of the deepest desires younger women often have when they choose to be with an older man is the yearning for stability. Not just financial stability, but emotional stability. There's a kind of calm strength they hope to find, a grounded presence that makes them feel safe to be fully themselves. It's this very sense of maturity and composure that often attracts them in the first place. And yet, paradoxically, many men undermine that attraction by allowing insecurity and control to creep into the relationship. It usually starts small. A comment she makes about going out with friends, a glance she gives someone else, or a delay in responding to a message. These seemingly insignificant moments stir something inside you. Instead of addressing it calmly, you react. Maybe you start questioning her, subtly policing her choices, or trying to manage who she sees and what she does. At first, you tell yourself it's about care or protection, but underneath it's about fear. The fear of losing her, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being replaced. This fear manifests as control. You might not even call it that, but she feels it. She senses the tightening grip. What began as a relationship built on freedom and mutual respect slowly transforms into a dynamic of surveillance and possession. And here's the hard truth: when a woman, especially a younger woman, starts to feel controlled, she doesn't feel cherished. She feels trapped. Why does this happen? Psychologically, insecurity is often rooted in past wounds. Perhaps you've been betrayed before. Perhaps you grew up believing that love is conditional and must be tightly held onto or it will disappear. These patterns don't vanish just because you've gained years of life experience. In fact, they often deepen over time if left unexamined. So when you find yourself with a younger partner, someone whose very youth might symbolize freedom or possibility, those old fears can intensify. It becomes tempting to try to anchor her to you, to make sure she never leaves. But here's the paradox: the more you try to hold on, the more she will want to pull away. Control is like quicksand. The harder you fight to secure her, the faster the relationship sinks. True connection cannot exist alongside coercion. Love flourishes in an atmosphere of trust and autonomy. When you attempt to dominate or micromanage her behavior, you may win temporary compliance, but you will lose the deeper bond that makes a relationship meaningful. Philosophically, this speaks to a fundamental truth about relationships: you do not own another person. Even when you commit to each other, you are two sovereign beings choosing day by day to walk together. The moment you try to possess, you turn love into a transaction. And transactional love is always brittle because it is conditional. It depends on performance, on the other person meeting your expectations, on circumstances staying exactly as you demand. Consider for a moment what first drew her to you. It likely wasn't a desire to be controlled. She saw something in you that felt expansive. A man who had lived, who had stories to tell, who carried himself with a certain grounded confidence. When you allow insecurity to take over, you become the opposite of that image. Instead of providing a stable foundation, you create an unstable atmosphere where she feels she must constantly reassure you or defend herself. Over time, this erodes not just attraction, but also respect. And without respect, there can be no lasting love. The antidote to control is trust. But trust doesn't mean blind naivety. It means choosing to believe in both her integrity and your own resilience. You cannot control her choices, but you can control how you respond to them. When fear arises, and it will, you pause, you breathe, you engage with it rather than letting it drive you to reactive behavior. This is the essence of emotional maturity. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to hold fear without acting destructively. Let's make this practical. Imagine she tells you she's going out with friends, and part of you feels uneasy. Instead of interrogating her or subtly discouraging her plans, you acknowledge your feelings internally. I feel anxious right now because this triggers my fear of abandonment. You don't project that fear onto her. Instead, you remind yourself that her freedom is not a threat. It is a sign of a healthy, balanced relationship. You then choose to respond with calm support rather than suspicion. This is how trust is built, one small moment at a time. Another important piece is boundaries. Many men confuse boundaries with control, but they are fundamentally different. Control is about trying to manage the other person's behavior. Boundaries are about managing your own. For example, you cannot stop her from texting someone you dislike, but you can express how certain behaviors impact you and make clear what you are or aren't willing to participate in. Boundaries say, "This is who I am and what I need," without dictating who she must be. Healthy boundaries create a container for love to flourish without suffocating either partner. It's also essential to examine the deeper stories you tell yourself about age and worth. Often, control arises from the belief that, because she is younger, she has endless options, while you must fight to keep her attention. But this is a false narrative. While youth may be attractive, it is not a substitute for depth, wisdom, or character. If you believe your only value lies in keeping her close through control, you have already diminished yourself. True power comes from knowing that you are a valuable partner because of who you are, not because you can outmatch her peers in some external way. Here's something profound to consider. The most stable relationships are those where both people feel free enough to leave, and yet they choose to stay. This choice, renewed again and again, is what gives love its vitality. When you control, you remove that freedom, and with it you remove the possibility of genuine desire. Desire cannot be forced, it can only be invited. And it is invited through trust, respect, and the courage to let the other person be fully themselves. So, what does this mean for you, as a man navigating the complexities of a relationship with a younger woman? It means committing to your own growth. It means becoming the kind of person who can hold space for her freedom without feeling diminished. It means replacing jealousy with curiosity, fear with courage, and control with open-hearted leadership. When you embody this, you become the very thing she was drawn to in the beginning, a source of stability, a grounding presence in a chaotic world. You no longer need to monitor her every move or demand constant reassurance, because you trust both her and yourself. The truth is, love is never guaranteed. She may stay or she may leave. But when you release control, you create the conditions for the most beautiful kind of relationship. One built not on fear, but on choice. And that is the only kind of relationship worth having. In the end, the question is simple. Do you want a partner who is with you because she feels trapped, or because every day she chooses to be with you? When you let go of control, you make space for her to choose you freely. And that, more than anything, is what keeps love alive. There's a mistake I've seen many men make. Particularly when they are older and dating a younger woman, they neglect the emotional dimension of the relationship. They focus so heavily on the external, physical attraction, lifestyle, experiences, that they forget what truly sustains love over time. At first, this might not seem like a problem. When a relationship is new, passion alone can carry it. The excitement of difference in age, energy, or worldview can feel intoxicating. But over time, if there's no deeper connection beneath the surface, that passion begins to fade, leaving both people feeling empty and misunderstood. You see, physical attraction might be what draws two people together, but it is emotional intimacy that allows them to stay together. And this is where many older men fall short. They assume that because they provide stability, resources, or experience, that will be enough. They overlook the fact that a younger woman often craves not just a provider, but a partner who truly sees her, her fears, her dreams, her inner world. Without this, even the most exciting relationship will eventually feel hollow. When you ignore emotional connection, you unintentionally create distance. The relationship becomes transactional. She may feel valued for her beauty or youth, and you may feel valued for your stability or status, but neither of you feels deeply known. This dynamic creates a subtle loneliness. You're together, but not really with each other. And over time, that loneliness begins to erode desire. From a psychological perspective, humans are wired to seek connection. Esther Perel often speaks about the tension between our need for safety and our need for freedom. Emotional intimacy provides safety, the sense that you can reveal yourself and still be loved. But when that intimacy is missing, people often seek freedom elsewhere. This is why relationships built only on external factors tend to be fragile. Without emotional depth, the relationship lacks a secure foundation, and both partners begin to drift. I've worked with men who genuinely believed that their role was to lead, to provide, to solve problems. but not to be vulnerable. They thought emotional openness would make them appear weak, especially to a younger partner. What they didn't realize was that their emotional distance made their partner feel unseen and undervalued. Strength is not the absence of vulnerability. True strength lies in the willingness to share your inner world without fear. When you open up emotionally, you invite her to do the same. This creates reciprocity, a flow of energy where both people feel nourished. It's not about constant deep conversations or dramatic displays of emotion. Often it's about small, consistent moments of presence. Listening deeply when she shares something important. Asking questions about her inner life, not just her outer circumstances. Expressing your own fears and desires without hiding behind a mask of perfection. This is particularly vital in relationships where there is an age gap. A younger woman may already feel a power imbalance because of your life experience. If you stay emotionally guarded, you reinforce that imbalance. You become a mystery she cannot penetrate, and she may begin to feel like a guest in your world rather than an equal partner. By engaging emotionally, you level the playing field. You create a space where she feels safe to bring her full self to the relationship, and where you are willing to be seen in your wholeness. Not just as the confident, accomplished man, but also as the human being beneath that exterior. Let me be clear, emotional connection does not mean oversharing or collapsing into neediness. It's about balance. Some men swing too far in the opposite direction. In an attempt to be emotionally available, they unload every insecurity or fear onto their partner, expecting her to manage their emotions for them. This is not intimacy. It's dependency. The key is to share in a way that invites closeness without placing the burden of your emotional life on her shoulders. Philosophically, this comes down to a profound truth about love. To be truly known and truly accepted is one of the deepest human longings. When you meet that longing for someone else, you create something sacred. But when you deny it, when you stay locked behind a wall of stoicism or distraction, you deny the very essence of what makes a relationship transformative. You might still have companionship, routine, even passion for a time, but you won't have the kind of love that expands you both, the kind of love that feels alive. Consider how many relationships end not because of a dramatic betrayal, but because of neglect. A woman might say, "He never really listened to me," or "I didn't feel emotionally safe with him." These are not small complaints. They are indicators of a fundamental absence. When emotional intimacy is missing, everything else eventually crumbles, even if the external factors remain. The dinners, the trips, the physical chemistry, they cannot compensate for the lack of being truly seen. So how do you build this connection? Especially if it doesn't come naturally, it begins with presence. When you are with her, be with her. Put down the phone. Resist the urge to fix or advise. Listen not just to her words, but to the emotions beneath them. Reflect back what you hear. This simple act of deep listening is one of the most powerful ways to create intimacy. It tells her, "I see you. I value your inner world." It also means sharing parts of yourself you might normally hide. Talk about your own dreams, your fears, your challenges, not in a performative way, but with honesty. When you reveal your inner life, you create a bridge. You move from being a distant figure she admires to a real person she can connect with. And in that connection, true desire grows. Because desire is not just about novelty or excitement. It is about feeling fully alive in the presence of another person. There's another layer to this. By cultivating emotional intimacy, you also deepen your own life. Many men have spent years suppressing their feelings, focusing on external achievements while neglecting their inner world. Relationships can be a catalyst for growth if you are willing to engage. When you practice emotional openness, you not only strengthen your bond with her, you also become more whole within yourself. You develop a richer understanding of who you are and what you need. In relationships with a significant age gap, this emotional depth becomes even more essential. Without it, the age difference can become a barrier rather than a bridge. She may feel like she's living in a different world than you, one defined by different priorities and experiences. Emotional intimacy is what transcends those differences. It's what allows you to meet each other not as older men and younger women, but simply as two human beings navigating life together. Ultimately, love is a practice. It's not a static state you achieve once and then maintain effortlessly. It's a daily commitment to show up, to listen, to reveal, to connect. This practice is what keeps a relationship alive and evolving. Without it, the relationship becomes stagnant, no matter how exciting it once was. So I leave you with this reflection. Do not mistake surface connection for true intimacy. Physical attraction will bring you together, but it is the emotional bond that will sustain you through the challenges and changes of life. If you want a relationship that endures, you must be willing to go beyond appearances and into the depths of the heart. Because at the end of the day, what we all long for, regardless of age, is not just to be desired, but to be deeply, unmistakably known. And when you offer that gift, you create a love that lasts.